A few days before my dad's 60th birthday celebration, I got a ping on my phone. My account had been hit with a charge, $8,500. All of it went to the catering and the venue. I asked what was going on, and my mom didn't even flinch. She just said, "You don't have kids, so this is how you show you care." In the background, my uncle let out a chuckle. I took a breath and said, "Well, then I hope he enjoys looking at a bunch of empty plates." That's when it sank in, I'd paid for the whole thing. So, I canceled it all. Every arrangement. And when people started arriving to find the venue locked up, my mom sent me a text, "Why would you do this?" I didn't argue. I just replied with a screenshot. That same week, when the charge first came through, I was sitting in my car outside the office. Lukewarm coffee in one hand, phone in the other. There it was again, $8,500. Venue. Catering. One transaction. Cleared from my account. I stared at the screen, hoping it was some kind of glitch. It wasn't. The numbers didn't change. No one gave me a heads up. No one asked for permission. They didn't even go through the motions of pretending I had a say. I called my mom. She picked up like everything was perfectly normal. "Oh, that," she said casually, using that same cozy tone she always falls back on when she's hiding something. "We figured it'd be simpler this way. You know, you don't have kids, so this is your way of showing you care." I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. She added, "It's for your father. Come on, it's a big moment." And right then, I heard my uncle laugh again. It wasn't loud. Just enough to catch. And something in my chest settled. That heavy, quiet weight I always carry at family events. The kind you don't name, just recognize. It was that same voice whispering in the back of my mind. They don't actually want you there. They just want what you bring. They didn't see me as part of the family. I was more like a wallet that walked. I didn't ask why they used my card. Didn't scold her for crossing a line. I'd done that before. More than once. And it never changed a damn thing. Instead, I just took a slow breath and said, "Well, I hope he enjoys empty plates." She went silent. Just a beat of stunned quiet. Maybe she thought I was messing around. Maybe she figured I'd do what I always did, laugh, swallow it, let it go. But I didn't. That same night, I logged into every account and canceled every single booking tied to that charge. Venue, done. Catering, canceled. Audio setup, scrapped. I didn't do it out of anger or spite. It was methodical. Just one thing after the next, like crossing items off a list. The next day, I turned off all notifications. I didn't want to see the fallout. But at 6:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Just one message. "Why would you do this?" From my mother. No greeting, no explanation, just confusion. Like the problem wasn't the fact they took from me without asking, but that I had the nerve to draw a line. I didn't write anything back. I sent a screenshot. The charge. The cancellation notice. The refund confirmation. The words, "Transaction reversed." Then I turned my phone over and went to make dinner. I didn't pick it up again. I didn't sleep either, not because I was mad. That had already burned itself out somewhere between the phone call and the final refund. It was something else. My mind just wouldn't slow down. It wasn't spiraling. It was organizing. Calculating. I started pulling receipts, not the paper kind, but the emotional ones. Years of them. Because this wasn't some one-off mistake. It wasn't a slip. It was a pattern. I give, they laugh. I offer, they expect more. I show up and they move the chair. Every single time. Like that year I flew in for my mom's birthday. I dropped $1,200 on food because she said she wanted something special. When I got there, they sat me at the kids' table. Said, "Oh, we didn't think you'd be staying long." I left after 20 minutes, just long enough to get a splash of juice on my coat from my cousin's toddler. No one noticed. At my sister's wedding, I wasn't part of the bridal party. Didn't get asked to say a word. But I paid the deposit for the photographer. She sent me a link and said, "Can you just cover this one thing?" That one thing turned into 5 vendors and $7,800 before it was all said and done. No one ever thanked me. Not once. And the worst part? They never had to ask. Because I always said yes. Automatically. Like it was expected of me. Because I'm the single one. The one with no kids. The one with extra time. Extra money. Extra space in the back corner. I remember last Thanksgiving. I drove 5 hours through traffic. Brought dessert. Picked up wine. Showed up late and found my chair taken. Not in the metaphorical sense. I mean literally. My uncle's coworker brought his daughter, and she looked a little left out. So they gave her my seat. I ended up on a folding chair next to the trash can. Nobody noticed. Not even when I slipped out early. I thought that was the worst it could get. Until this. Because this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was a strategy. Intentional. They didn't forget to loop me in. They left me out on purpose. They didn't want my input, just my money. Because as long as I wasn't involved, they could shape the story however they liked. Paint me however they wanted. The quiet one. The distant one. The guy who just shows up, pays up, and disappears. Not a son. Not a brother. A resource. And the longer I thought about it, the sharper everything became. That birthday party, the $8,500. They didn't cross a line. They followed the script. I started writing it all down, just for myself. Mom's 58th? I paid for the space. Didn't appear in a single photo. My brother's baby shower? I handled all the decorations. Didn't even get an invite. My sister had an engagement party. I bought the cake. Found out it even happened from a post on Instagram. At my grandma's memorial, I covered the flowers. My name wasn't even mentioned on the sympathy card. Line after line, event after event. No thanks, no invite, no warmth. No acknowledgement. I wasn't treated like family. I was the one footing the bill. That hit harder than seeing my account drained. Because money? That comes and goes. But your place in a family, your identity, that's not something you just refill. They didn't just take my money. They replaced my presence with a purpose. I wasn't someone anymore. I was something. I closed the notebook I'd been jotting all this down in, and I made a quiet decision. That was it. I wasn't going public with it, not yet and not loudly, but inside me, something clicked into place. Final. Done. Not from anger, but from simple math. I wasn't a guest at the table. I was the table. Holding it all up. And if they couldn't see that, they'd definitely feel it the moment I stepped away. So I started with the list. 6 vendors, all tied to the party. Catering, venue, audio rentals, floral arrangements, dessert station, and a live band. Every single one of those bookings was made under my name. My card. My email. My number. My home address. They'd even been calling me with updates. I just hadn't realized how deep they'd threaded their plans into me. No shouting. No dramatic texts. I just opened my laptop and started cleaning up. First stop, the venue. Hype Mason. They picked up right away, real cheerful like I was an old buddy. I asked if the balance had been charged in full. It had. Then I asked, is my name the only one on file? The manager checked. It was just me. So I asked about cancellation. She hesitated, said it was a bit last minute, but technically, I was the client. If I wanted out, it was allowed. Partial refund. Full cancellation. I told her to go ahead. Next up was the caterer. $1,200 for a plated dinner, past appetizers, shrimp skewers, filet medallions. The contract even had custom menu cards and a late-night taco bar. She sounded genuinely bummed when I told her to cancel. Are you sure? She asked. I said, yeah, I'm sure. But your mom said. I cut her off. She's not on the card. I am. Then came the florist. I'd shelled out $1,300 for floral designs I'd never even seen. Not once had I been sent a preview. Every detail had gone through my mother. I told the designer the event was canceled. She paused. Then said, almost like she'd been expecting it, honestly? I had a feeling. That stuck with me. Then I reached out to the band. They were a small, local group, 3 siblings. They'd already posted an Instagram story tagging the event, saying, can't wait to celebrate with the family this weekend. I messaged them, said the plans had changed, and canceled the deposit. All of it took about 3 hours. Quiet, surgical hours. No drama. Just decisions. I didn't call a single person in my family. Didn't explain a thing. I didn't owe anyone that. They'd helped themselves to what wasn't theirs, I was just taking it back. After that, I moved on to the tech side. The shared stuff. Streaming platforms. Calendar invites. The family Dropbox where they stored party plans, photos, spreadsheets, everything. I revoked my access and locked their uploads. Then I reset the passwords to every account I still had control over. It wasn't petty. It was just complete. I opened up my banking app and flagged that original $8,500 charge. I wasn't claiming it was fraud, but I told them it was unauthorized. Family had used my account without consent. The customer service rep paused, then said, "Honestly, this happens more than you'd think." I didn't say it, but I believed her. By 6 p.m., every vendor had emailed me confirming cancellations. I saved it all, emails, receipts, confirmations, and sorted them into folders by vendor. I wasn't planning to prove anything to anyone. I just wanted it organized. For me. At 6:42 p.m., the texts started coming in. First one from Mom, "What is going on?" Then, "You canceled everything?" Followed by, "People are showing up and there's nothing here." And finally, "Why would you do this?" I didn't write back. Not right away. Instead, I screenshotted every message. Then I scrolled all the way up to the original charge confirmation from 4 days earlier. $8,500. Posted. With my name underneath it. I grabbed a screenshot of that too. At 7:03 p.m., I sent a single reply. Just the image. The bank statement. No message. No explanation. I set my phone face down on the table. That night, I ate leftovers on the couch. Didn't turn on the TV. Just sat there in the quiet, watching the city lights bounce off the buildings outside my window. My inbox? Flooded. Voicemails poured in. My uncle tried to call, twice. Then my dad. Then one of my cousins. I let them all go to voicemail. They were real eager to enjoy my money when it didn't make a sound. Now they could sit with the silence it left behind. At 9:14 p.m., my sister finally texted me. 2 words. "You're being unreasonable." I smiled. Not out of bitterness. Just because, for once, things were finally clear. This had never been about the money. It was about being left out. It was about not being asked. About being expected to fund a celebration I wasn't even truly part of. Because that was the plan, wasn't it? They wanted a party, not one that included me, just one that depended on me. My dad's 60th wasn't meant to honor him, it was meant to send a message. Look how loved we are. Look how grand we do things. But I'd seen the guest list. Saw the names highlighted in yellow. And mine? Scribbled off to the side. Barely legible. There was a table labeled family. And then me, tucked under overflow. They wanted the cake. The champagne. The music. They just didn't want me sitting anywhere near it. So I made sure they'd still have that. Just not the part that counted on me. Just without me footing the bill. I heard later that guests had arrived to find the venue locked. My uncle stood outside awkwardly, trying to redirect people to some nearby diner. My mom was sobbing in the car, yelling into her phone, desperate for vendors who'd already stopped picking up. My dad? He sat behind the wheel, completely silent. Stunned. No one offered to pay for the mess. Most of them didn't even realize it had been my card behind it all. And that right there, that was the whole point. I was never seen as part of the celebration. I was just the scaffolding that held it up. I didn't yell. Didn't demand they apologize. Didn't post about it online. I simply stepped out. And that silence? They noticed it. Not because I shouted, but because the music stopped. Nobody called the next morning. That would have required them to face what happened. They weren't ready for clarity. So the first message came in at 3:27 a.m. From my mom. People were humiliated last night. How could you do this to your father? No punctuation. Just anger, cloaked in wounded pride. By 6 a.m., I had 7 more. We had friends there. This was supposed to be a family moment. You embarrassed us. You should have spoken to us like an adult. This isn't how families act. You've always had issues. You need help. I didn't reply. Not to dodge responsibility, but because I wasn't going to play that game again. I'd seen this pattern too many times. Step 1. Cross a line. Step 2. Deny it happened. Step 3. Blame the reaction. Step 4. Rewrite the whole story. At 8:42 a.m., my dad finally said something. A text. I can't believe you'd sabotage your own family's name. All for what? A bit of attention? Not a single word about the money. No recognition that they used my card, my account, my name. Just the same tired message. How dare I disturb the image they wanted to show? Then my uncle chimed in. He called directly. I let it ring out. He left a voicemail. You humiliated us. In front of everyone. You seriously couldn't just act normal for once? You always have to make everything about you. I played it twice. Not because it hurt, but because it was wild how deeply they believed it. By noon, the family group chat was on fire. Not just the main players. Cousins, aunts I hadn't heard from in months, even my dad's old business partner somehow found his way into the mess. They threw every label they could at me. He overreacted. He's selfish. He's having a breakdown. What happened to Mason? Someone asked. He used to be the good one. That word, hit hard. Because I knew exactly what good meant in our family. Good meant quiet. Good meant always giving, never questioning. Good meant useful. But not seen. Not appreciated. Not loved for who I was, only for what I could provide. By 3 p.m., my phone was packed. Texts, missed calls, voicemails, some starting with teary voices and ending with curses. One message read, "We had no idea this affected you so much. We just didn't want to say anything." And there it was. The truth slipping out. They weren't reaching out to make things right. They weren't looking to understand. They just wanted control of the story. Because if I was unstable, they didn't have to question their actions. If I was dramatic, they didn't have to face what they'd done. If I was selfish, they could still play the victim. At 5:30 p.m., my sister sent her piece. I hope it was worth it. You completely tore this family apart. I read that one out loud and laughed. She hadn't messaged me once during all the party planning. Not when the charges went through. Not when the vendors reached out to thank me. Not when I pulled the plug. But now that the image cracked, now she had something to say. At 7:02 p.m., my mom tried calling again. I didn't pick up. She rang 5 more times. I blocked her. That's when she switched to email. Subject line, "Let's fix this." The email read, "We were all under so much pressure. It was your father's 60th. We were just trying to make it perfect. You could have come to us. This is cruel. You've always been too sensitive. We never thought you'd take it this far. You've made everything so hard. Please come home." It wasn't an apology. It was theater. A guilt trip dressed up as sincerity. At 10:43 p.m., I finally responded. Just one word. No. Anything more would have invited argument, negotiation, excuses. And I wasn't going to waste time explaining why I had the right to say no. That night, they made one last attempt. My mom left a voicemail. She was crying. Her voice cracked, pausing between words like she couldn't catch her breath. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We were just exhausted. Your father's heart is broken. Everyone's talking about it. I told them you're just going through something. That this isn't really who you are. That you'll come around." I listened once. Then saved it. For the archive. For the record. Because the message was clear. They still thought this was just a phase. That I'd eventually cave. That I'd return to being good. But I wasn't coming back. I wasn't folding. And they weren't losing a son. They were losing their structure. And that terrified them. The funny thing is, I never meant for any of this to go public. Even after I reversed the unauthorized $8,500 charge. Even after my mom said I embarrassed the entire family. After my uncle called me unstable. I still planned to let it fade quietly. I thought I could hold my boundary without fanfare. Cancel the plans. Block the numbers. Step away. But then, they made it worse. They started calling my job. At first, it was subtle. A quiet message left with my manager. Just a quick question. Is he all right? Should we be concerned? The voice on the phone sounded rehearsed, professional, but there was a thin layer of threat underneath the concern. Then, shortly after, emails started showing up in the inboxes of some of my oldest clients. One read something like, "One of your vendors is going through personal issues. You might want to double-check their ability to deliver." That thinly veiled pressure disguised as concern hit me hard. At that moment, I realized they weren't trying to listen or make things right. No, they were distancing themselves. Not repairing. Not reconciling. They wanted to erase me. So I opened up the folder I had been building after I canceled everything. Titled, Boundaries_June_2025. It was basically a vault filled with proof and triggers. Everything neatly organized. There was a screenshot of the $8,500 charge, the one that popped up without warning just 4 days before my dad's 60th birthday. Confirmation emails from every vendor showing cancellations and full refunds. All the texts from my mom, uncle, and dad, packed with accusations, manipulation, guilt-tripping, and shame. Voicemails dripping with false sympathy. One voicemail from my dad stuck out. "You're destroying our reputation. You're tearing the family apart." And an email thread from my mom titled, "Let's fix this. We're all under so much pressure." It wasn't personal. This was a summary, hundreds of sentences, that I never planned on sharing with anyone. I didn't write a manifesto. I didn't call them out by name. There was no cursing. No dramatic pleas. I boiled it all down into one post. 4 days before my dad's 60th birthday, $8,500 was charged to my account without my permission. I reversed the payment, canceled the venue, the catering, the band. Suddenly, I was the villain for ruining the family. But this is what setting human boundaries looks like. Not noise. Pure clarity. I attached blurred screenshots. The charge, the reversal, the texts, the blame, the shame. I hit publish at 8:12 a.m. Within 20 minutes, my LinkedIn notifications exploded. Shares. Counts. I saw messages like, "Thank you for doing this," from one silent ATM to another. A former classmate reached out. I felt quietly proud. A vendor from the canceled party DM'd me, "If they need proof, they've got mine." By noon, there were hundreds of shares. By the end of the day, over 2,000. What started as a ripple had turned into a wave. And more importantly, they listened. They saw that I wasn't reacting with emotion or anger. I was sharing facts. I was not lashing out. I was simply breathing out the truth. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I got messages from colleagues, from distant relatives saying, "No one told me," and "Why didn't you reach out?" I replied once. I shared proof, not apologies. Tomorrow I told myself I'll visit Dad, just to say, "Happy birthday. I love you." No drama. No mountain of receipts. Just the plain facts. But tonight I had to watch how people reacted. At 3 p.m., my brother texted, "What are you doing?" The tone was a mix of accusation, confusion, and desperation. My mom wrote, "This is twisted. You're making everything worse." No, I'm sorry. No, can we talk? Just righteous anger. My uncle sent an email. "This is slander. You've damaged the family. We are considering legal action." That surprised me, not emotionally, but legally. That's when I realized I'd won the power shift. They weren't scared of the truth. They were terrified of being exposed. They begged me to stop. My lawyer told them to show their proof. So I did. I forwarded every legally sound email. Timestamps intact. That night, my mom messaged again. "You've destroyed everything. Our dignity is gone. Think of your father's heart." She didn't ask to make peace. She begged for a reputation. I watched the typing bubble on the screen flash red and blue. I didn't respond. Because by now, the truth wasn't breaking them. It was setting me free. Inside, I heard silence. And in that silence, I found clarity. I haven't blocked them. I haven't spoken to them. I'm not debating who's right or wrong anymore. I'm done defending my integrity. I opened a new document, titled simply, No more. One line inside. No. I exist. My boundaries stand. Some part of me expected backlash. Maybe lawsuits. Maybe more guilt trips. What I got instead? More silence. Because they realized you can't gaslight someone in public. I'm not stepping down at work. I'm not fishing for sympathy. I'm just holding my ground. No apologies. No takebacks. No fights to pick. Just peace. They say I destroyed something. Maybe I did. But what they built, on money and manipulation, never belonged to me. They took my card. I took back my voice. They didn't text me for 3 days after everything went public. Then suddenly, "Can we meet?" from my mom. "Just us. Just talk," from my dad. Said yes. Not because I hoped for change, but because I was curious. They picked a quiet coffee shop. Neutral ground. No decorations. No cousins lurking in the background. They were already there when I walked in. Mom stood up, reaching out for a hug. I nodded and sat down. Dad started with what he thought was an olive branch. "We miss you. We didn't handle things right." I said nothing. Mom followed. "We never meant to hurt you. It got out of hand. But you're still family. Still family." I looked at them. The ones who called me unstable. Who let others believe I'd had a breakdown. Who used my money and then called me cruel for noticing. "You didn't hurt me by accident," I said. "You hurt me on purpose." And then got mad when I didn't stay silent. My mom's smile vanished. Dad whispered, quieter, "We didn't realize how much it affected you." "That's the point," I replied. "You never asked." They tried to explain. Stress. Pressure. We didn't mean it like that. But I'd heard it all before. So I gave them the only truth that mattered. I didn't leave because of one party. I left because I became infrastructure. You don't talk to the plumbing. You just expect it to work. And when it breaks, you don't ask if it's tired. You complain. Mom's eyes filled with tears. But I didn't flinch. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm done being angry. I'm just done." I stood up, paid for my coffee. Just mine. At the door, I turned back one last time. "You didn't lose your son. You lost access to him." Then I left. And they didn't follow. And that silence? Finally, it was mine.